Hello everyone, today I am going to be discussing Catwoman, and by Catwoman I mean the Catwoman movie, and by the Catwoman movie I mean the one that stars Halle Berry that has gotten a lot of criticism over the years. And I think that's all justifiable criticism, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who would want to have a good Catwoman movie, but unfortunately this movie did not really produce a good final product ultimately, at least in my opinion. So I'm going to be looking at what I would have done instead that maybe would have improved the movie. Now, in order for me to do this, I need to sort of discuss a little bit of the problems with this movie. The first problem being the awkward way the movie's structured. There's a lot of fast forwarding and weird cuts and just sloppy editing in there that just does not do the movie justice. It really gets distracting, and you really feel like it was poorly directed. So that in and of itself could have improved the movie by a long shot by simply just trying to focus in on trying to create good cuts and good structure and not trying to have it just be awkwardly placed and positioned and then having things forward real fast when they don't really need to, and there's no point in being fast forwarded. Or there's just these weird things that happen within this movie that make you kind of know that this is not of a good quality. So what I would have done is I would have focused on trying to keep the movie a little bit more structured, keep the movie a little bit more leveled, so that the audience is not distracted into how badly the shots are coming out. So, and scenes. So, yeah, I think that's definitely something that could have been improved upon. Now, there is another major issue with this movie that involves Catwoman herself. Not necessarily Halle Berry's performance or anything of that nature, but with Catwoman, the character. Now, Catwoman, the character in this movie, is very cat-like. And what I mean by cat-like is she acts and behaves in accordance with cat things. Meaning she sniffs catnip at one point. She eats tuna and sushi, and she goes on all fours, and sometimes she's on high places. You know, like what cats do. Yeah. So this movie really emphasizes that, and the problem with that is that originally Catwoman within the comics is not an actual cat-like character. She's not like Spider-Man, who gets bitten by a spider and then suddenly becomes Spider-Man, you know, and develops all of these spider-like capabilities and instincts. Catwoman just happens to have sort of fancy-like gadgets, sort of. I mean, she has a whip. That's a really famous thing that she has. And she's not designed to she's not designed really to be a cat woman like Spider-Man is supposed to be Spider-Man. She just kind of looks like a cat. She's just supposed to have the look. She's not supposed to have like the real behavior instincts. Kind of like how Batman isn't a bat. He looks like a bat, but he actually has all of these gadgets and all of these different things that allow him to look like a bat. And maybe it sometimes fly like a bat. Or falling with style, however you want to approach that. But Catwoman is sort of the same thing. She's kind of not supposed to be she's not supposed to be like Spider-Man. And this movie tries to make it like that because we see within the sort of beginning when she finally becomes Catwoman, like she's literally breathed on by a cat. And then literally she starts getting cat eyes. I'm not kidding you. That's how the movie wants to go with this. And the problem with this is the fact that Catwoman was never initially supposed to be a character like that, and it just kind of looks ridiculous. With Spider-Man, it sort of works because it allows him to do a lot of things that make him more agile, more flexible, a lot stronger. It gives him certain powers like Spidey sense and being able to use a web. And cats don't really have that kind of quality in regards to their capabilities. Cats are cats. Cats have teeth and claws and all these different things, but they're not really designed to be like superhero type animals. I mean, at least I don't think a cat would really work into the same capacity as a spider would. And the problem is they don't really know how to make this Catwoman thing really work, because it doesn't come off as something that we can take seriously. Now you can argue whether or not we can take Spider-Man seriously, but Spider-Man in and of himself at least has a character and has a persona and portrays himself in a certain way. With this Catwoman, she's just kind of insecure at first, and then suddenly she becomes Catwoman, and then she's suddenly 10 times more confident, 10 times more sensual, 10 times more of everything. And I think they really want to emphasize that because they really wanted to go in with this Spider-Man-like angle. And it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It just looks really, really silly, at least in my opinion. I just think it just looks outrageous, especially when there's a lot more to Catwoman than making her like a cat. And really the initial person who wrote the comics, who developed Catwoman's character, he said that he classified women and men into two categories. Men were the dogs because they were friendly, loyal, and there, like, all the time. Cats were a little bit different because they kind of come and go. They're sort of mysterious. You don't really know what they've been doing all day. You know a dog, what he's been doing all day, because he's usually roaming around the house, and he's not really designed to be a go out there kind of animal. And the cat is always out and about doing something. And he classified these animals based upon the human genders. And he says that he thinks that these characteristics of these animals, and again, characteristics, not necessarily their behavior or their not necessarily what they do as a cat or as a dog, but just the way that they act resembles a cat or a dog. And for him, women sort of resembled cats. So, that's really the only connection that Catwoman really has as to being a cat, is because she's mysterious, she comes and she goes, she's not, she doesn't have the same capacity of loyalty and obedience as a dog. And what the author felt was a man. So, again, you could argue whether or not these classifications are appropriate to distinguish men and women, but that's what he was going for when it comes to this. The movie does not enforce this idea at all, and instead focuses on trying to make her an actual cat, and that just does not work. There's also the outrageous outfit that everybody likes to comment on. And yes, it is ridiculous. Yes, it is over the top. I think the headpiece is just so, like, really, maybe you did not need to have that headpiece. There's bad puns, and again, very bad writing in this movie. So, yes, and again, this bad writing comes when the cop, who Halle Berry ends up associating with in the movie, can't figure out who Catwoman is, and literally all the signs point to Halle Berry being Catwoman, and this takes up a lot of the running time of the film, so you know that this movie is trying to pad itself out. And also the makeup plot line with the villains, who basically are corporate heads of a company. So basically, like, their whole plan is to basically create sort of a monopoly with makeup, so that every time a woman or whoever puts on makeup, at least their makeup, they will have to keep reapplying it, otherwise their skin will, like, deform and kind of rot, or basically be not as appealing, so that they can kind of create, again, a monopoly, so that the person will have to constantly be relied upon by this. And this is obviously so illegal in so many ways, probably. Probably a lot of lawsuits, at least a lot of business lawsuits for this company. So, yeah, that's really what the plot tries to focus in on, and how Halle Berry ultimately ends up stopping these evil people. And this is just a not interesting plot at all. This is just like, this is not a plot when you think of Catwoman, especially when Catwoman, at least according to the comics, was more focused in on being a person of crime who committed crimes. Now, she does commit crimes in the movie, but that's not really the center focus and the center of tension of the movie. And even then, she does bring all the stuff back and says, I'm sorry, and she doesn't really mean to steal stuff, I guess. I guess it's just her cat-like instinct that makes her steal. So, yes. Kind of an issue there. So, what I would have done to change this whole movie around is I first would have changed the whole premise of the plot. Instead of it focusing on some evil corporations and makeup, I would have had the main focus be on a heist/crime ring story, where you have Catwoman, who somehow gets involved in crime, maybe at a very young age, maybe she has some kind of influence within her life to have her lead to crime, maybe she had a bad childhood, so on and so forth. You could have added in a lot of different things that would have involved her getting into crime. Because that's what Catwoman does. She's a criminal. She steals things. So, having a heist kind of movie and having it center around this crime-like world would have made a lot more sense in regards to what the character is supposed to sort of represent and supposed to be. And again, Catwoman is not really meant to be a hero per se. She's not really meant to be the awkward person that ultimately becomes, an empowered woman or whatever, which is what the movie focuses on. I think, though, a movie could still focus in on that aspect, but they need to, I think, add more, and what they could add more of is her struggles with being sort of an anti-hero, because again, that's how they sort of classify her, as an anti-hero, at least later on in her involvement throughout the years. So, I guess you could say, you could have the aspect of her being sort of insecure, and then finally when she becomes a criminal and she becomes part of that lifestyle, she ultimately feels like she's empowered, and that's exactly what empowerment feels like, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be. And then maybe ultimately realizing what true power is, and and realizing the importance of what power can do, both in a good way and a bad way. So you could have added in this really anti-hero aspect with, again, the whole plot being surrounded by her being involved in criminal activity. Instead of just having her be this insecure woman to suddenly empowered, but because I'm Catwoman woman. And this movie doesn't really do a gradual shift. It kind of just goes straight from her being insecure to her having cat powers, and then suddenly she's she's empowered, and I feel like if I were the director or whoever, writer, I would do it more gradually, and not make it so sudden. And all of a sudden, because you have powers, that means that you're suddenly a empowered woman. So I think that could have been done a lot more gradually. And I think what I would have done is I would have made that whole point of her being insecure maybe at first and then becoming Catwoman a very gradual experience, as opposed to us fully cutting from one scene to the next to finally she's in power now, yay. So I think that's what I would have done too. Another thing that this movie did not have, and that I think would have been cool to have, but they did not have it, is Batman. Like where was Batman in all of this? It's almost like you can't have a Catwoman movie without Batman. And the reason why I say this is because Catwoman and Batman have this really kind of complicated love-hate relationship, at least throughout the comics, sort of. So, and she is kind of the love interest of Batman. So you could have dived into that relationship, and we could have seen it through Catwoman's perspective, and then we could see it where she's coming from, as opposed to Batman. So again, would have added a lot more character, a lot more depth. But I guess no, this movie decided not to do it, but I would have done it because I think it would have added a lot more to the story and a lot more to the premise, and would have created maybe a better product. And also, again, like I mentioned before, Catwoman's powers are not really from having gadgets and things, her powers do come from having things like gadgets, whip and things like that. They don't come from her being this cat woman hybrid. No, she's not supposed to be like that, really. You can make her look like a cat. You can have maybe some references to cats, like with, how the way cats behave and how that behavior sort of resembles what kind of persona she wants to have. You could totally bring that in, but don't try to make her a cat. Just don't. It's not going to work to your favor, movie. It's not going to work to your favor. At least in my opinion. But I think, though, that's ultimately what I would have done. I just would have changed the whole plot structure from makeup artist conspiracy to a more heist and crime driven plot with maybe other characters thrown in. Make Catwoman a anti-hero, because again, that's sort of what she's supposed to represent, as well as make her go from being sort of insecure to finally having self-confidence within herself. Add Batman in there for a little bit, because that's always fun, and that relationship is really what's defined a lot of the comics and what a lot of people associate with Catwoman, because you can't really think of Catwoman without Batman. So again, I think that would have added a lot more to the characters and would have added a lot more to the plot, so you could have thrown that in there, but the movie decided not to, so I would have done that. And then have her powers ultimately come through her gadgets and through her training and through her ability to execute crime, rather than it be because cats somehow gave her the powers initially. So I think ultimately, though, that's really all I can say as to what I would have done. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But I think that's really all I can say. So have a perfect day, everybody. And this is actually coffee, not milk. And have a nice Thursday and week. And I hope to see you all in the next video.